third-party logistics, now you're dealing with a huge strategic alliance. If you're talking about having somebody controlling the aspect of the ordering, processing, shipping, and handling of the goods that you're manufacturing, you better have a solid contract with all kinds of clauses in it, as well as a huge level of trust in the process. It'll take a while to get it done, and it's going to take a while before you get all the kinks worked out. No matter how well done the contract is, you're going to have trouble. You're going to have trouble at the beginning. You'll have trouble in 3 months. You'll have some trouble in 6 months, but you'll see about 6 months that things start working themselves out. And hopefully, if all goes well and people are talking to each other and communicating well, you can have a really good relationship 1 year and after that. Now, that being said, if you're off to a rocky start, if you're not trusting each other, you're going to have all kinds of problems the entire term of the contract. So let's talk about what third-party logistics. Here's actually the definition of it. It's about outsourcing the e-commerce logistics to a third-party business. That includes inventory management, warehousing, and fulfillment. A lot of times, the manufacturers here, they just want to manufacture because that's what we do. We make stuff. We make stuff. So you have that. You want to hire somebody to handle all the other stuff because so much of the stuff seems to be extraneous that you have to sit down and deal with the truckers. You have to sit down and deal in case there's a truckers union. You have to deal with that one. You have to deal with the inventory management, and everybody hates inventory management because nobody wants to have it because it costs money and it's sitting there. So you want to deal with that. So this is actually farming out the work, shipping off the work, some of the most difficult work that you have, and focusing in on your own aspect. A lot of times you'll see this in what we call a virtual corporation. Nike. What does Nike do? Nike sells shoes. Nike sells clothes. Nike has a great marketing campaign and they have a great designing office. They don't make anything at all. All that is shipped off and somebody else is making their stuff. If they're not making it the way they want, they'll fire them and hire the ones that will. They'll sit down there. If the cost is too high, they'll fire that company and put another one in charge of that. You'll see them taking advantage of low-cost labor. They've even taken advantage of child labor a couple of times as well. Then they were involved in a huge fiasco in Bangladesh where had a couple buildings collapse with lots of workers, including very young workers in the process. Hopefully that's resolved now and they're back to doing what the rest of the world expects them to do. But Nike doesn't do that work. They do other work and they're extraordinarily good at it. They're a virtual corporation. They farm out a huge amount of different products out there. You'll see a lot of companies do that. And this is a pretty common practice to have somebody handle your logistics. We call it a third-party logistics, 3PL. This is the initials. They provide an e-commerce merchants to accomplish more, and they have tools and infrastructure to automate your retail order fulfillment. It works really well if the relationship is good. You integrate the warehouse operations, the transportation services, and they call third-party logistics. There's a lot of complex in the business environment, and the complexity is increasing. You have to deal a lot with shipping and the different nuances of shipping because we're buying goods from a lot of times overseas companies. Sometimes it's local, sometimes it's over the road, sometimes it's piggyback where you're bringing something in on trucks, or it's fishyback or bringing stuff in on ships. It's whatever you have in the process that might be out there. So many functions are outsourced or offshored by the time you're done. So by offsourcing, we're talking about usually other companies in the same country. By offshore, we're talking about other countries where you're shipping goods there and bringing them in. Firms need to ensure the functions are all done. I purchased something one time overseas, and by the time it was done, the manufacturer labeled it one aspect of it, and I was paying a 20% tariff. But the one that I was dealing with here in the United States, she said, no, it's not this, it's this. And all of a sudden I'm saving 10% because she's sharp and she's intelligent. And by her being the clever gal that she is, she was brilliant and she brought in a savings to me of 10% overall in the aspect of less tariffs. She cut it by 50%. Big savings because you had somebody that really knew their work in logistics rather than somebody from a different country. So it depends. So pay attention to all these, especially the activities. Here's 4 basic ways to ensure that tasks like this are completed. Your internal activities, make certain you know what you're good at. That's a big deal. What are you good at? What are your core strengths? That's what you should be building on and also focusing on. It could be you might know what you want, but you might have to outsource a design firm to sit down there and translate what you have, and it may have a lot of costs back and forth. It might be that you don't know a thing about how to produce the product that you want. You just know that here's your core, this is what you want to do. You want to create this design and you want to sell it. You outsource the design, you outsource the manufacturing of it, you outsource the polishing of it, and then you outsource the shipping of it. It all depends what you want to have. Acquisitions, giving the acquiring firm full control over the way that the business function is performed. Sometimes you can, it just depends what you have. If you want to sit down and buy a company that really does the work that you want to have done, it's called an acquisition, and you buy it. Sometimes you have most business things, you want them at arm length. You want to sit down and have an arrangement where it fulfills a business need, but it doesn't necessarily lead to a long-term strategic advantage. Sometimes you just want to have this project being done as an experiment and keep it away from you for the moment and then absorb it yourself as time becomes out through an acquisition or some other methodology, or maybe even consider doing it yourself. And other times you develop what we call the strategic alliance, which we talked about with the Costco Kimberly Alliance situation. Multifaceted, goal-oriented, long-term partnerships between two companies. Both have risk and both have rewards, and they know what they are and they share them. When there's a bump in the road that they didn't expect, they have good communications and they work those things out, or they dissolve the alliance. Depends what it is, but you can see with the Kimberly Clark, it's been developing a long time, and both sides are very happy with them, to the point that Kimberly Clark opened up a store down the street from Costco headquarters. So adding value to products, it is a huge way of improving market access, strengthening operations, and adding a lot of technological strength. You're building a solid framework for your different kinds of alliances. It enhances strategic growth. And by strategic, we're always talking 3 years plus. Normally we talk strategic is 3 years plus. We call tactical growth is 1 to 3 years, and we talk operational growth is 1 year and less. So we're talking about big long-term pictures. We're looking at enhancing the organizational skills and building financial strength. The downsides is your core competencies, they shouldn't be compromised. And that could be a problem because you might be having a great product and it might not be going through the system where you want. Or maybe you have farmed out or outsourced your manufacturing and somebody else is doing it, and it's not quite the quality that you want. You got to have the controls in place or your competitive advantages could be compromised. 3 types of alliances. Third-party logistics, we talk about all these. We're talking about the RSP, the retailer supplier partnerships. They're very similar, but the one deals with logistics, the one actually deals with the supplier aspect of it, and the other one is distribution. All 3 of these are different parts of the supply chain. We'll be talking about all of them in this chapter. Make sure you understand the differences between them. Third-party logistics is about the logistic part of actually coordinating all the activities. The retailer supplier are actually 2 people in the supply chain. The supplier is there either producing or really the aspect of making certain it's getting into the retailer aspect of it, and the distributor is coordinating activities between the actual producer of it and also the final retailer. All 3 are different. They're all styles of strategic alliances, and sometimes they overlap and you have alphabet soup in the process. When do you use 3PL? A lot of times this is huge. It's an $8.4 trillion industry in 2022, and it's getting even bigger. Strategic, long-term, multifunction, and a full-blown process integration. There's a large range of different needs on 3PL companies. It depends on what you want, and there's a lot of people waiting out there. You want to buy goods in China, you hire a company in China to coordinate logistics. Sometimes you hire an inspection company that's going to go in and check on the manufacturer, making certain they're producing the goods the way you want. They're also checking to make certain the goods you want have the right labels on them, and they're getting in the proper containers. And then you watch the containers being loaded onto the ship even. You have all that going for you. It depends what you want. So third-party logistics, you want to have integrating the partners into the supply chain. It'll provide you with a lot of strengths. a lot of times we keep them at arm's length at first, but then as soon as we start getting the data in and we start seeing what happens, then we start adding more duties, more responsibilities. We give them more leeway in the process of doing what they're good at. So third-party logistics and the task, it's important to know the four major tasks, the three different kinds of partnerships, and what you should be doing, but especially here about the third-party logistics 3PL. Take care.